right, good morning, everyone. Well, thank you for being here. So, as mentioned, my talk is from Spotify to Spatial. There are two things I want you, or I hope you get out of. One, the purpose is, regardless of your background, whether you have a technical background or not technical at all, you can build amazing experiences for Apple Vision Pro. And of course, I'll get into how. And then second, on that note, I will share actual practical tips and resources that helped me on the journey. So with that, allow me to introduce myself. I am Miguel. I am the founder, developer, designer, debugger, everything under the umbrella for my studio, Augmenos. I grew up in the United States, and now I live in the Netherlands. The apps that I focus on range from finance to science to art and culture. My flagship app, Museus, has been featured by Apple in the App Store several times. This is an article published by the Apple's editors team, excuse me. And just 2 months ago, Museus was also featured at Apple Park in Cupertino as an example of an immersive experience for Apple Vision Pro, among other amazing apps. And finally, last year, my other app, Astronema, was featured globally across Apple's social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, etc. So, for a moment, I'm going to completely pivot and talk about something unrelated to XR. So bear with me, I'll connect the dots later, but consider it a mental break from the whole topic of the week. What could these symbols represent? Any guesses? Yep? Transportation? Nailed it, supply chain. So I started my career in supply chain. I studied supply chain at MIT. I worked at Amazon building the data center infrastructure for the server racks. And I want to explain how incredible the world of supply chain is. And again, I'll connect the dots later. So think about a product like the phone in your pocket, right? We have to start with raw materials. So this can be the lithium for the battery, it can be the silicon for the microchip, it can be the aluminum for the frame. So from these raw materials, we extract them from Earth, and we create useful components. And with that, we move down the supply chain to the manufacturing. So this is like the cool videos that you see about the robots putting together an iPhone, for instance. But just because you have that finished phone, for instance, doesn't mean it's still ready to ship to customers. We need to move down to what is called the assembly. So this is, for instance, when we load the operating system onto the device, where we check for regulatory compliance, where we package it, for instance. So now we're at that final finished product stage, but we still need to ship it out, in some cases, to millions of customers all over the world. So how do we do that? Well, this is where the transportation or logistics elements comes in, right? And we call that distribution. So through trains, trucks, airplanes, ships, we move this product to different warehouses all over the world. And these warehouses are based in strategic location, based on proximity to the customer, based on cost effectiveness, even based on geopolitical considerations like taxes and weather. So you have the product at these warehouses, but they're still not near to the end customer like you. So we move to what is called now the final mile, or maybe here it's called the final kilometer, I'm not sure actually. But what happens is that from the warehouse, they're moved either to retail stores, for instance, or to fulfillment centers for e-commerce that are closer to the customers, or in some cases, just direct to consumer, delivered to your doorstep. So this entire process, and this is a major oversimplification, tries to map out what a supply chain is like, right? So after I worked at Amazon in supply chain, I moved to Spotify. Now you might be wondering, well, Spotify is a streaming app, how do you have a physical supply chain? Well, you're right, there isn't one, but that's why I like to call it a digital supply chain. Now, allow me to elaborate. There are many parallels, but think about, for instance, a song. This flow might seem familiar. So with a song, you start with the raw materials. And this is, for instance, the vocals, the instruments. All of that gets recorded, right? And we continue moving downstream the digital supply chain. So when it gets recorded, it's processed in the computer. It is trimmed, it's edited, it's mastered. So this is kind of the assembly. We're manufacturing to assembly. So now you finally have this master file for this song, but we still need to make copies of it for different sizes, different bit rates, censored, uncensored versions. So now we're at the assembly approaching the distribution. So we make copies and we send that all over the world to different warehouses. In our industry, we call those data centers, but they're pretty much the same thing. These data centers are, again, based on proximity to the user, cost effectiveness, geopolitical considerations. So from the data center, we still need to get it to the user's device or computer, and that's when the content delivery network comes in. So this is the final mile aspect. So what we have are servers based in generally big cities. There's probably a couple around from here. They're called point of presence. And we get the file, the song, and we take about the first, say, 10 to 20 seconds of that. And we push it out to these servers that are closer to the end customer. So that when you stream a song and you press play, you get that header file, as it's called. It plays almost instantly, but it's also retrieving the rest of the master file or the full song from the data center. So that's how we push to the final mile. My job at Spotify was managing this last part of the supply chain. So the content delivery networks, the cloud, and to the client. It was primarily on the business side, just negotiating the commercial agreements with our suppliers to deliver exabytes of data to 500 million customers around the world. So, how does this relate to XR? Well, it doesn't, but that's my point. That regardless of your background, like mine, not technical at all, is all primarily business development, you can build some amazing experiences for Apple Vision Pro. And I did this all just with native tools, native APIs, native frameworks. I did not use Unreal, I did not use Unity. So from Swift to Swift UI, Reality Kit, Reality Composer Pro. Now I'm gonna get into specific resources and tips, as I mentioned, that helped me build apps. But first, I'm gonna show you briefly 2 of the apps in more detail to illustrate what is possible to build on Apple Vision Pro. And if you haven't done the demo at the App Store, if you don't, at the Apple Store, if you don't have one, I highly, highly encourage you. It's a mind-blowing experience. So first, Astronema. This is a Space Center app. It lets users learn about the spacecraft and the telescopes that we've launched into outer space from NASA and ESA and JAXA. You can also view images taken from those telescopes of outer space. The user can also learn about astronomers and astrophysicists and astronauts, not just our contemporaries, but also spanning from the first millennia. And of course, being an astronomy app, you can learn about outer space, like black holes, galaxies, solar system, and asteroid here, with rich 3D models and audio guides to help that learning experience. And all of these are in beautiful outer space environments that I created. Next, Museus. So you've seen a preview of this as well. When you launch the app, you're placed in a virtual museum hall, and you can physically look at the paintings on the wall. You tap on it, and the painting comes up close to you. You can see the details of the brushstrokes of the paintings. You can learn about the painter, you can learn about the artist. I also created some immersive environments that try to match the architecture and the artwork movement, like the Brutalist Gallery here with the futuristic art movement. And for some select artworks, like Hokusai's The Great Wave, with AI, I created these immersive spheres environments that try to kind of let you step into the painting, or at least be in the place of where the painter was at the time that they painted, to be inspired to feel what they might have felt when they created their masterpiece. So again, all of these were built completely native with Apple frameworks. Now, I'm gonna get into the practical resources. So I'm gonna give you 5 that truly, these are the ones that helped me learn and how to build apps. The first and foremost, pretty obvious, but it's worth mentioning, the Swift programming language. If you're a developer, you are already way ahead of me, because when I started learning to code, this was 2 years ago. If you're not, if you don't have programming experience, I still think it's worth looking at this book. It's by Apple, it's the official one, and it's free. But the Swift programming language is super simple, I think. The syntax is clean, it's very human readable, it's a pleasure to work with, so it's not gonna be too much of a challenge. Regardless of your technical background though, the second resource I recommend is Sean Allen. So I don't know the man, this is not sponsored, but I can really vouch for his videos. So there are obviously many tutorials out there about how to build iOS apps, visionOS apps. But what I really like about Sean's courses is that he goes fast. So unlike other courses where it goes slow and you have to 2x it or you lose focus, he goes pretty fast. But he stops, he slows down and he stops when it really comes to important concepts you need to understand. And of course, it being on YouTube, they're all for free. Third are the Apple sample projects. So on Apple's developer website, there's about, I want to say, 15 to 20 projects that you can download. And I swear, these apps could be their own apps on the App Store. They're extremely well polished, they're feature rich, they're beautifully designed, and you get all the code, all the content for free. You can see the back end, how they built it. They're super rich in information. In fact, I haven't even gone through all of them, but this one I really, really emphasize. It's kind of hidden, but they're super helpful. Next, step into Vision. So this is a rather new resource, I want to say. It was also launched alongside Apple Vision Pro. But Joseph Simpson here, he created this website that focuses entirely on visionOS APIs and frameworks. So when there's a new operating system, like at Worldwide Developer Conference, there are so many new features, they're kind of hidden in the footnotes. And it's just not possible to go through and learn all of them. But what Joseph here did in Step into Vision is he looks for those, he researches them, and he publishes bite-sized, easily digestible articles and codes and labs so that you can learn and implement them in your apps. So a huge, indispensable resource. And finally, vibe coding. Now, I know this sounds cliche, but truly, I was vibe coding before vibe coding was a thing. And by what I mean that is when I first started learning how to code and build apps, I was relying very heavily on AI. And I think it's a reflex that people need to change, or a muscle memory that we need to work on, is that rather than looking through documentation first, or if you're struggling with a bug, browsing Substack or whatever, it's fine just to ask AI. Just write a prompt. Know, of course, that it's not going to be always correct. But over time, as you continue doing this, you will realize and recognize the strengths and weaknesses of the model that you're using, and you'll also just learn along through the process. So super, super, super important to do vibe coding. I personally use Claude. I think right now it's the best model and most well-trained for visionOS. But of course, these change every week, so just use the one that you're paying for. All the resources are there in the QR code, so don't worry about taking too many notes. Linked in there for you. Okay, so now I'd like to get into practical advice, tips that helped me in my journey. The first is spatial first design. This one, again, may seem obvious, but I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. So I've downloaded many apps for Vision Pro, and the concept is great. The idea is wonderful, but the execution is terrible. And I don't mean that a disrespect to my fellow developers, of course, but I think what the issue is, and my hypothesis, is that a lot of developers come from a 2D background, right? You designed websites, you built apps for phones or tablets, so now you have this fancy new toy that you can work in 3D. What happens is some developers completely over-index on 3D. They go crazy on everything 3D, and it's just overwhelming. It doesn't make sense, it's not a good user experience. Other developers are still stuck in that 2D mentality, and they don't realize that you literally have a whole new dimension that you can work with to expand your creativity. So there's a balance, right? You have to find out what elements still work great in 2D, even in a VR or XR headset, and then what elements will amplify your app or your experience in 3 dimensions. So find that balance. There's resources on Apple's website as well, but this one is critical. Next, localize for global markets. So the Apple Vision Pro market is like this big. And obviously, when you only publish your app for primarily English, say, or the United States, your market is even smaller. So what I did is I localized my app for all the markets and all the regions available for Vision Pro, and there's plenty of tools like Translate Kit that can do this very fast, very easily, and cheaply with AI. And I was honestly surprised how many more downloads I received from China and Germany, second and third, respectively, just by me localizing to their languages and markets. And not just downloads, but also reviews and revenue. So this one is a no-brainer, especially with AI tools now. You have to do it. Third is the monetization model. So this one's a bit tricky, and honestly, I'm maybe not the best person to give advice about this, but I'll tell you what worked for me. There's already so much friction putting on a VR headset, going to the App Store, typing in an app name, and then you're hit with a paywall. Even if it's €1, I really think, obviously it depends on your model, but I really think you should make your app free whenever possible. Now you can monetize it, how I do, with in-app purchase content to unlock additional content essentially, and some others do subscription models. If you're gonna do a subscription, obviously you have to better have a continuous good service to command that kind of pricing model, otherwise you will lose customers. But it's still very early stages in Apple Vision Pro, right? Don't go into this thinking you're gonna make €1 million your first year. That's not gonna happen. And even for the most successful apps and developers who I know that have worked for Apple Vision Pro, the revenue is still not, it has recuperated the investment in the hardware and the time for the most part, but it's still very early stages. The goal though is long term. We'll see if the numbers speak for themselves. Number 4, the App Store promotion. So when you submit your app for review and approval to be distributed, there's a kind of hidden little sidebar menu that lets you submit your app for a nomination for promotion. Now, I cannot attribute directly that by me doing this step, my apps got promoted on the App Store, but what I can say is almost every time I've met with the Apple Developers Relations team or the marketing team, they've reminded me to do this step. So I assume they actually do have a team that is looking at this, and it takes at most 5 minutes when you're launching your app for approval. So just do it, there's no excuse. And finally, connect with the community. So the Vision Pro community is quite small. It's a very niche group. In fact, we hosted a Vision West meetup on Sunday, and I was pleasantly surprised with the turnout, but the majority were actually non-Apple developers or Vision Pro users. So that tells you it's still a very small community. These are some of the LinkedIn groups I've joined, but of course there are others on Discord, on X, on Facebook. But the point is, connect with the community. Feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to make connections as well and introduce you to these groups. It's wonderful being part of them because we motivate each other. We obviously help each other when it comes to technical questions. We inspire each other. So really, I'm super happy to be part of this community. Again, the resources and the tips are linked there for convenience. So with that, I hope I've motivated some of you to get into development for Apple Vision Pro. We honestly have so many resources now that you can design something quite rapid. Prototyping with AI, for instance, it's been completely game changer for, I think, the development experience. And also, something about supply chain, hopefully you learned. But as I mentioned, my background is completely unrelated, and now I'm focused on Vision Pro development, and it's been super fulfilling. And the experiences that you can create are amazing, honestly. Whoa. Yeah. I think that's, was that the last slide? All good back there? Yeah, all good. Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Oh, thank you. Okay, sorry, really quick. I wanted to finish with a meme that's oddly motivating to me. It's how to draw an owl or how to build your first spatial app. So you guys know, draw some circles. Now you redraw it with AI, and the last step, you know the last step. But anyway, yeah, thank you. So questions? Yeah.
I'm curious a bit. I mean, I haven't tested your apps and also I don't have. I developed for Vision Pro, but I don't own it. It's the company that owns it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's more like one of the struggles that I have a lot, and since I'm a new Swift developer, is with the Xcode debugging mechanism. And when you said that you use vibe coding with Claude, I mean, it's not, I guess it's not really connected to the Xcode in the amount of bugs that you probably have.
Correct. Yeah.
Or if you use Cursor that I tried, it doesn't connect to the Xcode, so you'd never have. So I was wondering, what is your process when you get those sendable main actor bugs that?
Yeah. In 2 words, copy paste. That's my process. So
Yeah.
I don't connect the AI models to
Yeah.
Xcode. Same, I've heard that Cursor is still not there yet for Xcode or VisionOS. So I like to, for now, separate my workflow where I copy paste the specific code view that I'm working on into Claude and then just go back and forth. So it's a bit more manual, but for me, it works really well and I get to deviate that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
good question.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I'm a high-end game developer, and so I come from another dimension into the Vision Pro. For me, it's more about the quality of the gear that enables like really high-quality immersive experiences.
Definitely.
And I was wondering if you have any insight about possible co-production with Apple, like on the business end, if there is a channel open to entering collaboration on the creative end, you know, like to create this bigger experiences, not just apps, but actually virtual realities that are like of super good quality and deliver high quality content.
Yeah. So, and disclosure, I don't work for Apple, so they're not paying me to be here, so I'll speak freely about this. I think Apple, you know, they're notably not here. They don't participate too much in community, but they do hold sessions for developers. In fact, I think there's one this week in New York, and they're themed. So some of them are for gaming, for instance, some of them are for video and film, and you get to have more one-on-one connections with Apple developers working on those technologies and to learn more directly from them how to implement them. Now, for specific collaborations, I know that they've collaborated for Apple Immersive Video. So this is kind of their, with Blackmagic, the special camera that creates super high quality production video, right? But for gaming, I'm not aware of them working directly, like one-on-one collaborating with other developers. But I think that the key thing is just networking and going to these developer sessions that Apple hosts, because that's really where you can make the connections. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, yeah, and really nice application, the museum one. I really like it.
Thank you.
How do you get the models in the application, like the paintings, because they're really high quality, for instance, if I remember well?
Yeah. And obviously that's a huge consideration is you're going to see it in VR. I want it to be high quality. So for the Museus app, for instance, the paintings themselves, a lot of them are through the Met open source project. So the Metropolitan Museum in New York, they have super high quality artworks, images of these artworks. And it's all open source, it's all for free. Of course, it's all under public domain, so it has to be for non-commercial use for the most part. So that's primarily where I get them from, or myself. I obviously like art history and going to museums, that's why I made this app. So every opportunity I get to go to a museum, I see an artwork that I like or think this would look amazing on the Vision Pro, I use my iPhone. And surprisingly, iPhone on RAW mode, and then just a little light adjustments afterwards, looks amazing on the Vision Pro. So, yeah.
And just the last one, and did you learn as well like 3D modeling?
Yeah, so with 3D modeling, there's the several apps. Polycam, for instance, is very good, but there's also a native app by Apple where you can create, I don't think they're Gaussian spots, but there might be related. But yeah, you just look around walk around the object, scan it, and it creates a USDZ file, which is super rich in detail, but very light, and it's native for Vision Pro. So yeah, that's what I did. Good question, thank you.
Quick question.
Last one?
Yeah, last one.
I'm a WebAR developer, and I know on the latest Vision Pro I can use WebAR. Did you try something out? Is this good? Is this not good?
To try what out on the latest?
WebAR, it's like when you use the browser and you enter a session and then you get ported into a AR
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, so it's a bit hidden. You actually have to enable it under settings, Safari, and enable that. Yes, I think it's pretty good. I've looked at a couple websites, and when you open the link, there'll be a pop-up that says experience this in immersive mode or WebVR. Yeah, so it is supported. Yeah, good call out.
Thank you very much, Miguel, for this
Thank
really
you.
insightful talk and to share all your knowledge. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.